All right. Hey, everyone, and welcome to the May OCA meeting. We have a great meeting planned for you. I hope you guys are enjoying your Friday night and you're having fun staying inside watching with us. If you could be outside in the sun, at least you're in Indiana, you're inside watching us, and we're going to be talking about fish. And we got Stephan Tanner with us, and we've got our president Lou, we got Don here, and so we got a bunch of fun announcements ready to be had, and let you guys know what's coming up. And so we're glad you're here with us, and we can't wait to just talk with you, and hope you have a good time being a part of our meeting. So Lou, what do you have for us here tonight?
Well, start off with the drawing prizes for this evening. There's going to be two of them. The first one, open to everybody, can win, anyone that's watching. Now, what you need to do is on the comments, put your first and last name, okay? And that way it'll get added to the wheel of destiny, as I like to call it, and you'll be part of the drawing. And we'll use that wheel twice. The first drawing will be for a 4-inch cube filter from Swiss Tropical plus a 8-ounce package of pellets from Plecos. And then the second drawing will be a membership drawing, which means that if you're a member and you win, you'll get a kilo of Northfin Cichlid formula 1 millimeter pellets, and that was donated by Agnaquatics. So, and if you're not a member, you will still win. You'll win a 1-year membership to the OCA and be
the gift that keeps on giving.
Yep, because you'll be able to participate in both drawings next month. Then. So that's how that'll work. The next thing I'd like to talk about, let's just take care of the monthly business here. BAP entries. All cichlids this time. Nothing came in on catfish. We have Stephanie Davis, a newer member. She joined about the time of our the auction a few months ago. She turned in Metrioclima esterae. Roger Stark turned in Protomellus taeniolatus, the red empress, and Pterophyllum scalare, the zebra angelfish. Then board member Jonathan Jambi Dietrich turned in Otopharynx heterodon and Metrioclima personotis, the albino version of the red top. There we go. Red top zebra. And okay, that's the bull show results there, which I'm not talking about right now.
Oh, sorry.
That's okay. Those were pretty pictures anyway.
All right.
So those are the BAP submissions that would have come in for our May meeting. So hopefully we'll get that back to the real thing pretty soon. Yeah, I'm hoping August that we'll get back to live ones. Can't guarantee anything, but that's the plan right now. Also, bull show now, Byron. There, you're ready.
All right,
there we go. Okay, all of the entries were by Jambi Dietrich, and you can see that for the female cichlid class, that is a nice Nimbochromis venustus, and second place was the black torpedo holding. I see she's got a mouthful there. And third place is that albino red top zebra. Probably won because she was holding eggs. Why she beat out the red top zebra, which has more color. But Jambi wins them all anyway. And that's the personotis, again, the albino version of the personotis. And then there was the Victorian class. And first place was the black torpedo. The one on the right, that's a little bit washed out. Usually they're jet black, but that's what happens. You put a camera on them, put a light on them, they wash out a little bit, but it's still good condition fish, deserving of the prize, and the best of show being the venustus. Okay, so Jambi sweeps. Join Put in something for June. Here's the classes for June. There's Tanganyika and Lamprologus. That includes shell dwellers this year. So Tanganyika lamps will be one class, and Central American cichlids 8 inches and under. 6 inches and under, my bad. 6 inches and under Central American cichlids. Here is the window of acceptance here. So you could submit these anytime between May 14th and May 24th, inclusive. Okay. May 14th through May 24th is when Ron Michael, our bull show chair, who's doing a lot of work on this virtual bull show, well, he'll be taking the send in your photos. You could send in a photo or a video. Most people, I think, are opting for photos now. And if you want to find the rules, the information, just look at the Ohio Cichlid Association website under meetings, and you'll see bull show there. And that's where they have the, right now up there is the virtual bull show information. And by the way, if you want to participate in BAP for the June meeting, you can also go to OCA website and under meetings, click on virtual BAP. I think that's what it's listed under there, virtual BAP. Okay, Don, you ready to tell us about our special event that we have going on?
Yes, we are running a kids coloring contest from now until the end of May. The way that works is you pick out a template from the weirdwaters.com site. They have 4 coloring templates of stylized fish, or use one of your own, from a coloring book that you may have access to, and have your kids color in the templates and submit them to, I believe it's OCA Bullshow it's Bullshow at OCA.com or OhioCichlid.com. Help me out, guys. Anybody know?
Anything with inches? I don't know.
Okay, it's on the Facebook site with all the instructions, exactly where to email it. So have your kids color them, and then send it to that Bull Show address that's indicated in the Facebook posting. And there are prizes. Every kid that enters will win an OCA junior membership. And there are several other prizes that we will have. We encourage, being faithful to the kids' theme. So we don't need, old men like myself doing coloring contest, winning one of the prizes that defeats the, well-intended nature of the
Don, I would actually be impressed if you'd beat out the kids who color a lot.
You're right. I'll take that as a challenge. But,
I could never stay in the lines, and the nuns hated that. And but I don't know if I probably still couldn't.
Well, I'd use Photoshop. It'll work really well. I did forget to say that the hospitality suite is open, and in keeping with the theme for the week, Cinco de Mayo, I have a Corona Light. So at any rate, but I back to the kids thing. We do have a trailer for Weird Waters that we were going to show. Is that right, Byron?
Yeah,
hey, Don,
we were going to show it now, or was Stephan?
Excuse me, I found the information you were looking for.
Oh, good.
Yeah, you can see that you can get the coloring pages from weirdwaters.com,
right.
weirdwaters.com/activities, and then you submit them. You take a photo and you submit them to ocabullshow@gmail.com.
Gmail.com.
Yeah, OCA
there's even recipes
Bullshow at
Yeah.
Gmail.
Yeah. Yeah, there's the 4 templates, or you can use another one that is fish related to color in, and we'll accept those as well. So the intent is really to get our junior hobbyists and kids who aren't in the hobby interested in this wonderful hobby. So, really, really encourage you to have your kids participate. So expose them to them, show them this Weird Waters site. Stephan's going to talk about the background on Weird Waters. We were just going to show the trailer at this point, give you an idea. It's an animated fish story series that our big supporter, Frank Reese of Blue Zoo TV and radio, is launching. So more to follow when Stephan comes on, but let's watch the trailer.
Mysterious strangers came out of nowhere. Danger!
Where are we? Welcome to Blue Zoo!
It's been 3 days since all the great beasts escaped.
Swim!
The great beasts are definitely planning something big.
Let me think!
Think faster! Think faster! Nothing here makes any sense.
Just because my home doesn't make sense to you doesn't mean it's not real.
I'm not scared. I'm fast. Tiger's smart, and you know everything about this world. We have to work together.
Hey, you big ugly light bulb!
We did it! Give me a high fin! Nobody?
Blue Zoo has always been a place where special fish could be free to show who they really are inside.
Wow!
This is amazing!
You came to the right place.
I need some brave fish to go on an adventure.
We'll do it.
All grown-ups, you're with me. All sprats, scream until you find a place to hide.
This place is weird.
All right, so real quick here, I got a couple questions. What TV shows or what channels or what network is that going to be on that kids can watch it? Do we know that yet?
I don't think that's been announced yet by
Okay.
Frank Reese, so it's forthcoming.
Okay, just curious.
We'll probably hear more from Stephan on that too.
Perfect.
I had one additional comment, so, more to follow. Check out Facebook for the instructions on how to participate. There's also some, another video of my grandkids that really wanted to get on live and, recorded and push the coloring contest. So they're adorable in my opinion, but I'm the grandpa. So at any rate, check out Facebook for more info. We do have prizes that will be rolling out through the month that are from Odd Conings, RMS, and some other, Stephan Tanner, Amazonas, but, more to follow on that. So I did want to say that last week I went on a weird underwater adventure myself at the Ohio Fish Rescue with Ed and Gertrude Koning. So that was as amazing as Weird Waters animation itself. So, if you want to learn more about all that Ohio Fish Rescue does, check out their Facebook site, in their website where you can donate to their cause, and you can watch my video on that visit that shows the amazing large fish and large aquariums that Big Rich and the Ohio Fish Rescue have to offer. So I'm officially done for now, Lou.
Oh, okay. I was just scribbling down all that information in case you forgot to mention it. But it's a good video. You see a lot of the fish, and Big Rich gives you a lot of background on the tanks and the fish, and it's something definitely to check out.
Yep.
Okay. Now some pretty big news. We're ready to tell you who's going to speak at the extravaganza. This year's extravaganza. It's we're planning for a live event, and we're hoping that people
Planning. Come on, it's happening. Don't be saying planning.
just don't want to get hopes up too high. Don't want to get my own hope up too high.
Lou's always got to have all the I's dotted and all the T's crossed. So go ahead, Lou.
Yeah, well, I not all the T's are dotted or I's crossed yet.
I know.
Hey, I'm vaccinated. I'm good to go. So
Me too.
Yeah, me too. All right. So as usual, we have Odd Konings, who's always our anchor, and he's hoping to get to Tanganyika this summer.
No,
And
he's
so
going.
He's planning. Okay,
right.
He's going to Tanganyika this summer, and
Yep.
we'll be basing his talk on new information that he finds there. So we're looking forward to that. Another one of our speakers, a guy who's been there at a couple of them before, and is just an outstanding speaker in my opinion. That's Paul Loisel. He is the emeritus curator of freshwater fishes at the New York City Aquarium. He's written a whole ton of books. In fact, he's kind of like my favorite fish author. His command of the English language is just exquisite, and his talks are that way too. He's just a erudite man. We have his title. It's Central American Compact Cichlids. So he's going to be talking about the smaller Central American cichlids.
Parrotfish? No, I'm kidding.
A pair of fish, yeah.
No, a parrotfish, but yeah.
I know. Okay, we have Les Kaufman come. Les is a professor of biology at Boston University. I've heard him speak a couple times. He's kind of a brilliant man who's going to put together something. We're not sure. He might be talking about the crisis facing freshwater fish worldwide. There's a lot of pressure on freshwater fish worldwide. So that is a prospective topic that he told me about. We're going to have someone who we scheduled to have about 4 years ago, and it didn't work out because he couldn't get the visa, but he's all legal now, and that would be Luis Tencott. He's a postdoctoral researcher at the Federal University of Mato Grosso do Sul in Brazil. And he won the 2020 Jim Smith Fund grant at the virtual extravaganza a few months ago. And he's one of the requirements is that you report on your project, and he's going to do it the best possible way, and that is at an extravaganza. So one topic will be collecting in the upper Rio Tetras, which is an area that's cut off from the rest of the drainage. So we see some unusual species there. And I'm also, he also said he can give another general catfish talk, and he's one of the top Corey researchers right now, I've been told. So it'll probably be Corey Doris. And we have Eric Bodrock coming over from Pittsburgh. So he'll take a little jaunt over, and Eric's an exciting speaker. He's one of those guys who speaks from the tip of his toes. And he's the owner of Oddball Aquatics. And he often gives a talk called Spawning Oddball Catfish, that he keeps throwing in new species. So that's what he's going to do, and update it with a bunch of new species. Eric's been coming to extravaganza. I mean, I met Eric probably in the early extravaganza era. So he's going to be able to have a function there this year. And except other than just being interesting to talk to as always. So Eric Bodrock then will be one of the catfish speakers. And then finally, for our Friday night, special talk late Friday night, we have Charlie Grimes coming back. He's going to be giving a reprise of his dead fish talk. Now, yeah, he gave it 3 years ago, but I know after the first time I saw it 3 years later, I was raring to hear it again. So And this time it's going to be recorded, so you can be part of a live recording. Yeah, don't be one of those guys like at the live concerts that always shout just so they get to be heard on the record. But you know how they always used to do that. But so you're going to hear the dead fish talk, and it's going to be recorded for the ages. So you'll be part of a historic aquarium hobby event there. So I'm looking forward to seeing Charlie and talking to him and him giving that talk, which if you've never seen it, it'll make you laugh hard. All right, so I think we got through all the business. I'll look see if there's any questions about the extravaganza that I can answer on the chat here. So I'll do that too. And now let's get to our speaker. We have another person that I've known since early extravaganza days. He's been in with his business, Swiss Tropicals, in the vendor room forever. And he's going to give us a talk tonight about catfish, and he's going to talk about Amazonas Magazine, which he is the American publisher of. And also we'll hear more and see more about Weird Waters. So here is our old friend, Stephan Tanner.
Thank you. Much appreciated. So just to correct some misunderstanding, I won't talk much about catfish today, but that's fine. I think you will still like it quite a bit. So let's see, go share screen. Here we go. Can you see that?
It's not full screen.
I just turned it full screen. Can you see it?
That's
Byron?
better.
You're good. It's full screen.
Full screen?
Yep.
All good to go. Well, good evening, everybody. Thank you for the kind words, Lou. As always, I love to see a lot of friends, and unfortunately, we have been doing this now for the better part of a year in a way that is, less than satisfying. But I just signed up for the AKA in St. Louis. I'm going to go to the ACA also in St. Louis a month later. And there is no way that you can keep me away from OCA in the fall. And so I hope to see as many people as possible right there. So obviously I have to plug a little bit Amazonas Magazine, because we just gonna go to print again on Tuesday. Maybe a little brief history for those who don't know. It was founded here in the US in 2012 by Reef to Rainforest, and it's actually based on the German magazine that was founded by my friend Hans-Georg Evers, who has also spoken at OCA a couple of times. In 2018, Mike Tuccinardi, Matt Peterson, and myself took it over. And now we're in the 10th year total in the English-speaking version. So we cover a little bit of everything from native fishes to man-made fishes and everything that you possibly can find in terms of fins in between. We are really priding ourselves of trying to publish great pictures and informative texts. And the whole idea is to promote fish keeping. That's really our central thing. If you pick up our magazine, we want it to be animating to go into the fish room and try some things, keeping, breeding, aquascaping, etc. We show plant culture, we show tricks, techniques, equipment, and so on and so on. Obviously, we also have collecting and travel adventures. You just spoke of Eric Bodrock, my friend in the Pittsburgh area, coming to speak. We just recently published a travel article that he wrote. So May 9th is the last day to subscribe to the next issue. So if you don't want to miss it, go subscribe. We also have all back issues available. I have literally piles in the warehouse. And something we covered in the last issue was Weird Waters that you just saw the trailer. Frank has been a good friend for many, many years. And he is known to many as Frank Rees of Blue Zoo Radio. His true name is actually Frank Sandor. He can tell you the story why that was changed, but we covered it in the last issue. So the whole idea is he thought about a new way of getting kids involved. And, you know, people always talk about bringing kids in, in the high school age, with having tanks in the school, etc. But it might be already a bit late. So he came up with the idea of doing a cartoon with freshwater characters for kids between 3 and 11 years. And these guys here live in an imaginary pond. Some of them have supernatural powers. And the whole thing is really a fun show in sort of 7 to 8 minute episodes, so perfect for little kids. And as already was mentioned before, this should come out sometimes this summer. I do not know exactly which networks and streamers will carry it at this point, but I spoke with Frank earlier today, and they're very close to getting that signed off. But there is more to come for Amazonas, as we just launched our YouTube channel, and this is our introduction.
Hey, Stephan, I don't think we're hearing anything.
Oh, we had that problem last time. I'm not quite sure why not.
Are you...
Let's see. I know I changed something last time, but I forgot what it was. Any ideas?
I'm not sure.
It did the same sort of thing. I can hear it right here through.
Yeah, that's weird.
But it doesn't go through. NEC had the same issue, and they use a different platform, so it's something weird.
Yeah, it's got to be something coming out with the output of what maybe you have a setting in your PowerPoint presentation that's muting the audio. That would be the only thing I can think of.
Well, let's do something. Can you search in the background for the YouTube channel and just bring up the YouTube thing, and I'll continue, and we can run it later.
Yeah, what's the YouTube channel I'm looking for again?
That would be Amazonas Magazine.
Amazonas Magazine. Okay. All right, I will do that right now.
Right. It might not come up that easily.
Okay.
Sorry, guys, for everybody who gets a little screwed up here. Let's see if I can find it. Okay, got it. Might be able to bring it straight up.
I have it, and we'll get it up here in just a sec. We'll remove your stream here for a second.
Sure.
And then I will add the one that has that. Oops, I hit the wrong one. Okay, here we go. There we are. All right, here we go. I'll hit play on it.
Oh, don't do that. That's the long one.
Oh, that's the long
just
one.
Just do the introduction. We don't want to watch the whole 21 minutes.
Okay, I thought I had the introduction one. Okay, I see it. It's
No,
the
the
51.
second one down.
Yep.
Still don't hear anything.
All right, I know what I did. Wow, we're having fun technical difficulties. All right.
All right.
I got it here.
You got it?
Yeah, I know what happened. All right, give me 1 second. I know exactly what I did. It's really simple. It was just a tab that I forgot to hit. When I hit it, that says share audio. It's in the bottom right corner. It's really tiny. You know what?
Oh,
I
yes,
bet that's
yes.
I bet that's what you did.
Of course.
Yeah, when you hit
a little tap on the left side.
Yep, when you hit share screen, and I go to Chrome tab, it says share audio, and I forgot to click that. Now I can click it, hit share, and let me add that to the stream.
Yeah, I'm glad this can be a learning experience for all of us.
Oh yeah, there's always.
The only problem is I forget in like a week. I don't remember.
All right, we should be good to go.
Yep.
Hey everybody. Happy Earth Day to all of you freshwater fish folks out there, and welcome to the launch of the Amazonas YouTube channel. My name is Alex Rose, and I am the Communications and Digital Media Editor for Amazonas Magazine. I'm happy to tell you that in the coming months, we're going to be putting out all kinds of cool new content, including intros to all of our staff, interviews with a bunch of the people who write articles for us, and a whole bunch of great content about the wonderful underwater freshwater world that we all love so much. So do ourselves and yourself a favor, subscribe to the YouTube channel and follow along for new info. Thanks, and we look forward to seeing you in this space soon.
Perfect. Thank you, Byron. All good?
Yep, and I'll put your presentation back on the stream.
Okay, I'm going to go back here if I can do that. Let's see. We got it?
It should be up there. Yep.
Okay. Full screen. Are we back on full screen? We're good to go? Byron.
You're good to go.
Okay.
You're good to go. Yep. I
Okay,
keep
guys.
muting myself.
Yeah, I figured. But once I'm full screen, I can't see anything. So I promised Lou and Don to talk about Brazilian fishes, and we were initially talking about Plecos, but you will see why I decided not to solely focus on Plecos. And for the simple reason, lots have changed in the Brazilian trade in the past 12 months. So I give you a little bit of a historic overview what has happened in the past some 30 years with Brazil. As you can see, this is a map of Brazil, and there are historically several major fish export regions. The first one is Manaus, which probably everybody has heard, with the major tributary, the Rio Negro and its tributaries. And that particular area is famous for raminos and cardinal tetras and a whole bunch of assorted tetras. Then, of course, altum angelfish come from there. And in general, various types of angelfish. Discus in a variety of flavors. Lots and lots of cories, plecos, but of course, apistogramma and numerous cichlids. This is, or was, for many, many years, essentially the center of fish exports in Brazil. The second most important region was the central Amazon Basin, which was upstream of Manaus. And so it includes the Yavari, which is the border river between Peru and Brazil, and of course all the tributaries that come out of Colombia into the Amazon, and of course the Rio Nanay that comes here near Iquitos into the Amazon. And again, angelfish, cories, plecos, apistogramma, cichlids, tetras, a major part in the trade, very important, ottocinclus. Since there's no tank-raised ottocinclus in the trade, everything is wild caught. Farlowella and whiptails and many other fish like knife fish and so on. This is a very important area of collection still, and a lot gets exported out of Leticia, then to Manaus. Some goes Tabatinga, which is on the Colombian side, goes up to Bogota and is exported that way. Part of the Brazilian fish are also shipped, boated up to Iquitos. There's no street access to Leticia, so it goes all the way up to Iquitos and then gets flown out of there. Another region that became important in the late 80s, early 90s was Belém, which is at the mouth of the river, and it covered this area here in the lower Amazon. A lot of it was geophagus, pike cichlids, cories, but most importantly, after the discovery of zebra plecos and similar fish in the Rio Xingu, which is right here, the Rio Tetras right here, and the Rio Tocantins and Araguaia right here. So lots of fancy plecos, but also very important export was stingrays. A little bit earlier, Rio de Janeiro was an important export. Things back in the 90s, we suddenly saw very unusual plecos show up. Lots of ottocinclus and hisonotus and other relatives. Scleromistax, you know it as Corridoras barbatus and relatives. Tetras, then the Geophagus brasiliensis group, a bunch of Gymnogeophagus, which occur mostly in this area here. Pike cichlids again, various cories, and again, various apistogramma rounded up the exports from that region. However, things changed quite a bit in the early 2000s. Brazil, very eager to protect its natural resources in terms of financial exploitation, started to implement a lot of legislations. Fish were put on the red list, but the ultimate hammer came down in 2008 with the implementation of a white list. So as you probably can imagine, red lists are essentially fish that cannot be exported. And white list is essentially the opposite. So instead of listing fish that are illegal to export, it lists fish that are legal to export. Now, that is, from an administration point of view, a much more difficult thing because it tends to be many more species than you would put on a red list. So the initial list, Instrucatio Normativa 2003, note in 2008, only had 450 species allowed, which was amended in January 2012 to about 750 species. Now you have to keep in mind Brazil probably has in excess of 4,000 species, and that was a problem. Restricting the exports had serious consequences because it was limited to known species only. So that had issues with collecting fish in some areas. So if the vast majority of fish in that area were no longer exportable, that meant you could only collect the few things that were on the positive list. So especially with seasonal fish, that made it very, very difficult because the availability of various species throughout the year was severely limited. That limited stock increased the freight costs because exporters as well as importers here in the US and elsewhere couldn't fill shipments in a reasonable way. So the prices went through the ceiling. Then, as is often the case, there were other factors. In Indonesia and in Europe, increasingly breeders started to produce the so-called bread and butter fishes, the cardinals and the rummy noses. These were the fish that made exports from Manaus sustainable because you could literally fill thousands of boxes with cardinals and rummy noses to beef up the volume in order to carry along other interesting fish. Well, with the fact that suddenly all these other so-called interesting fish were no longer available, then that already cut into the export quantities. Now on top of that, suddenly those fish are available tank raised, further limiting the exports. And then Colombia. Colombia came out of a civil war and started to massively expand its fish exports. They also have cardinals and rummy noses and ottocinclus and whiptails and bucket loads of plecos. So these things all contributed to the result that suddenly Colombia became the major exporter. The freight from Bogota is relatively cheap to the US. There are good flight connections. It's much more difficult to export fish from Manaus or Belém to the US because of limited flight connections. So they literally run the Brazilian competition out of town because of availability, price, and freight costs. It literally, this limitation of exports and the combination of competition from breeders and other countries exporting fish almost collapsed the Brazilian trade to completion. The collectors who used to go upriver to catch a variety of fish throughout the year started to look for other work. Many exporters closed, and a few actually went to jail because they exported fish that were illegal and they were caught. And the new execution of the law, the new people at IBAMA, which is sort of the equivalent of US Fish and Wildlife, those people were actually young, experienced in terms of fish recognition, and they didn't hesitate to put powerful people in prison. All that made Brazilian fish expensive. Now, some of you may know that there is sort of a pecking order of who gets fish. The Japanese and Chinese market right now pays the biggest dollars for fish, meaning the best selection goes to Asia. Then come the Europeans and the Middle East. And after all these customers have been satisfied, the US takes the leftovers because we're not willing to pay the prices that maybe Korean, Japanese, or Taiwanese importer is willing to pay. What happened on the Brazilian end was that fancy plecos, mostly the ones from the Rio Xingu, and lots of cichlids and foremost stingrays were smuggled, usually via Peru, Leticia, and Tabatinga, and so on, to Colombia, and then out of the country. So a significant amount of the fish that were no longer legal to export became part of a major black market, and it was actually drug runners who carried L82s and zebra plecos and other fish alongside coke out of the country in their planes to Colombia and beyond. However, thanks to the work of a bunch of mostly scientists in Brazil, In April 2020, a new list was finally, or a new law was finally published. So that was pretty much a year ago, and I'm going to get out of this here to give you, let's see if you can see this, StreamYard. See, I need to share the screen slightly different. Okay, no, that's the wrong one, sorry. This is always a learning experience, isn't it? Let's see, stop sharing, share screen.
And I can add it.
Window. Well, I just have to pick the right window. Let's see, sticky notes. Plecos. Okay. Oh, wait a second. No. Must be this one. Share. Okay. Yeah. Okay.
All right.
So, can you see that?
Yep, you're full screen now.
Good. Okay. So, this is actually something you can find on Amazona's website. This is the translation that Leandro Sousa and myself did of the actual law. So we translated the whole thing. So if you want, you can go and look at it. It details what's allowed, how it can be collected, how it can be exported. But can you see this, that I switched back? Or am I still on the...
Right now there's just text on screen.
Okay, so this is something I guess I need to manually change every single time. Share screen, window, this one. Okay, we're back.
All right, there you go.
Okay, come on. So, this is this law. This was published a year ago. And for those who like to read it, this is the link. We can probably pop that into the chat if you want to. One other thing you can also do, if you go to the Amazonas website and you click on blog and you look for my blog, you will find it. I think it's the latest story published. It will explain how this law affects the whole thing. Now, the fundamental change of this law compared to the others is it actually reverted back to a red list system. So instead of having 750 species whitelisted, it essentially allowed for the export of anything that is not explicitly protected. So that is really the fundamental change, meaning from before 750, we are now, there's maybe 200 species on the red list, and the other 3,800 some species are legal to export. Now, we had sort of a slight hiccup in the last 12 plus months. It's called COVID, and that had major impacts on collection, transport, and exports. The biggest bottleneck is flights, because if there are no passenger flights, there's no air freight, and without air freight, there are no fish exports. It's that simple. But despite all those obstacles, slowly more species are hitting the market again. So we have Cichlid compressiceps, a fish that used to be abundant in the trade in the 90s, who disappeared almost completely, and not because the fish itself was actually prohibited from export, but because the collectors in the area where this fish occurs couldn't find any other fish they could export. So it was not worthwhile catching just one species. Another fish, the L14 Scopinioncistus aureatus, was essentially never really banned. It was always on the whitelist, but it's now coming back in numbers because there's so many other fish coming along. The same is for these Pecoltia types down here. So especially out of the Rio Xingu area, despite the dam that was built, there's lots more fish available in the trade, and I see weekly lists from Brazilian exporters, and the lists get bigger and bigger and bigger every month. So the current red list is a little bit different in that trade species, meaning species that are exported in volumes or used to be exported in volumes, are only a minority. What's key is killifish out of Brazil are in general prohibited from export. Zebra plecos are still illegal. Now, oddly enough, 174, which is a relative of the zebra pleco, is not on the red list, and this has the law has certain shortcomings. One of them is if a fish doesn't have a clear nomenclature status, meaning it doesn't have a name, it cannot be listed. So that's it's kind of one of those conundrums. You have to have a name in order to protect it. So this is a fish that de facto is not protected. But I know that Leandro is working very hard on getting finally a name on the fish so it can be protected. Both these fish in reality do not be exported. There's no need for it. Either one can be bred easily. There's breeders in, especially Indonesia, they make literally hundreds of these every week. So there's no need for that. Now we do this whole, thing of flipping back and forth again. Let's see. Share screen. Let's go to the next one. Can you see this?
Yes, I can.
Okay. So this is the red list. And I made I took it out of the law and colored it. So it's kind of crazy, and obviously we're not going to go through the whole list, but it just gives you sort of an idea. We have here in red loricarids or plecos, just sort of an idea. Since you're a cichlid group, a gray cichlids, and a few sort of weird exceptions that I can point out. So here, for example, we have, these are, the first two are ancestral species that are blind. These are cave dwellers. So they live in very limited areas, hence they're protected. Here again, this light blue stuff here is Cichlid or killifish. So they're literally all illegal to export. When you scroll sort of through, you see, nobody really knows what a Corumbataya britsky is in the trade. It's a weird looking pleco. There's other sort of things protected. Here's a Gymnocephagus that is illegal to export. Very limited. Genensia, these one-sided life bearers, are other fish that are protected. Lamontichtis, a little whiptail type or Royal Farlowella type fish. Now, one thing, say Leporacanthigos joselimae is on the red list, but it has a special exception after Leandro and a few other researchers assessed its population status. So this fish is actually legal to export. There's a few others that fall in that category. Parancistrus nudiventris, Pecoltia. This is 134. A lot of you know this fish. Very popular. I know Eric breeds them, for example. Here is Ariatus. This is the sunny pleco I showed before, the L14. Interesting enough, you see here that you have Teleocycla, several pike cichlids that are protected. And something a lot of people know is Simpsonichthys, which are these little killifish. But just that gives you an idea. So this list is not very large, and it contains, these are all marine fish, the ones that are stricken through. So this is a list that is manageable also from the point of what do you call that? Managing the enforcement, because you always have to keep in mind that whoever does the law enforcement has to be able to actually identify what's going on. But there's also new fish coming out, and one of the really exciting things in the last sort of 12 months, in some areas has been going on longer, is fish out of this central area of Brazil. It's the Parceses and Mato Grosso plateau up here. These are the origin of major rivers. The Rio Paraguay goes down here. This is the Rio Tapajós. This is the Rio Madeira. And they contribute a lot of new fish. So we're going to go a little closer here. It's actually, at least so far, mostly a tetra thing. There's a bunch of cories and plecos coming out as well, but not as many so far. So the area we're looking at is just east of Bolivia. So here would be the Rio Guapore, not Guapore. I just blank on it. It will get to me. That flows into the Marmore and then into the Madeira. So the Madeira drainage here. You have the Urenia and the Teles Pires who which form the Tapajós down here. Then you have the Xingu that comes up here, the Araguaia, and you have the Paraguay. So this area here around Cuyaba has become a major exporter of new fish in the trade. So here. Another thing that has popped up back in the trade is something out of southeastern Brazil, and that is red of Rio Tetras. These things are actually on the red list. Their natural occurrence is here around Rio de Janeiro. That's where they were originally described. But according to Flavio Lima, I spoke with a few weeks ago, they have been released probably by aquarium traders in this area here, and they're now collected there for export again. It's not quite clear if they're still in large numbers in the original area around Rio de Janeiro, because it's a very highly populated area, but they're very common around here. But there's there's just stunning fish coming out of it, and I have a bunch of these. I have these here, over here, and these Weizmannorum, Hyphesobricon Weizmannorum. This looks like a red of Rio Tetra, except it's blue. And this is something closely related to the lemon tetra. They come in as red Cherry Tetras. And this is Thaieria species, undescribed. It's just stunning what's coming. Hyphesobricon arua, I have these. This is Hyphesobricon corule and montagi. I have all these fish down in my fish room. These things are just stunning. So they're all available at this point coming out of those areas. So there's much more cool stuff to come. One thing one should probably also mention, because that's a special concern, there are certain fish that are only available in limited areas like Weizmannorum, and there's a certain risk that these fish get over-collected. On the other hand, when you look at the region right here, anybody can go onto Google Map and look especially at this area here, the state of Rondônia, which is here, and Mato Grosso, which is here. You will see that they're chopping down the forest at a pace that is just absolutely crazy. So interesting enough, speaking with Flavio, he said that even in the middle of soy fields, a lot of fish are still doing relatively well. But if they're limited to a few drainage, little creeks that essentially flow out of the soy fields, the only thing you need is like a diesel truck tipping over in the mud and they might be gone. So the good thing is small tetras, for the most part, are easy breedable. Therefore, chances are that, especially if they're as cool as some of these, they will be tank raised very quickly. So with that, I close out and always thank my wife and happy fish keeping to all of you. Let's see. Where am I here? Okay.
Very good, Stephan. I'm not disappointed at all. You covered a wider range of fish, but you talked about the topic that you promised. So
well, I said Brazilian fish, right?
Well, you said loricarians or Plecos. You said Plecos, but it's okay.
Right. Well,
Hey.
I got really into those tetras, and I can tell you that Amazonas is working on a special issue, the very first Amazonas special. Can't promise exact dates yet, but what I can say is Flavio Lima, Leandro Sousa, Oliver Lucanas, and Hans Evers are the team that are working together with our trusted Ann Whitman of getting a really exceptional, I mean, that was sort of what I said is we want to really do something new on tetras, because let's face it, since 1977, which is like ages ago, Jacques Cherry's book, there has been nothing in the English literature published comprehensively on tetras. Now we don't want to do, a huge book on hundreds of species, because there's way too many. But we want to really cover all these new fish. We want to also emphasize which ones are endangered, like Oliver and Margaret, his author on some of the protection stuff they do. They will write an article about how the changes impact the fish. And so, stay tuned. This, I think, should be something really, really cool. And not just for, cichlid keepers, but anybody who loves apistogramma should absolutely love those little tetras, because first of all, they're really cool bycatch, or really cool byfish to go with apistos. And I'm pretty sure that once the collectors in those areas figure out that you can make money with other things than just tetras, they will start to export cories and apistos and other things. Right now it's a little challenging, because often when the exporters tell a collector go somewhere, they come back and bring 10,000 tetras. And I'm like, guys, you don't need to wipe them out. You just need to harvest them in reasonable amounts. And that is a little bit challenging, because especially the Asian market pays, a huge amount of money. And I can tell you, I paid a fair amount of money for my fish, and the American market is not the most expensive one. But some of those little tetras easily go $30-40 retail, which for a tetra is a fair amount of money.
Hey, I don't know how much you know about this, but do we know the effects of the Belamonte dam on the Xingu? Has that been studied?
Yes, that's an ongoing project that Leandro Sousa and Oliver Lucanas and others are heavily involved in. So the current thing is, it depends. The fish that are upstream of the dam, say the Rio Iriri and around Altamira, the deep water species, say the Pseudarcanticus and the Scobinon the big fish, they don't seem to care as much. First of all, they have relatively large distributions, so they're not as much impacted, and they don't care about having deeper water. A little bit more difficult it's when it comes to gold nuggets. Also, at the moment, I would say it doesn't seem to impact gold nuggets that much because they're exported in huge quantities. I mean, they're popping up everywhere. They're still relatively expensive, but they show up. Now, we knew before they're already occurring in very high densities. Naturally, these big algae scrapers, they have very large clutches. So the big question is how much water they let go down the big bend and don't dam up. But they're required to run some water down. Now with President Bolsonaro in charge, you never know what's happening because it was kind of like what happened to us the last 4 years. If you have a crazy at the steering wheel, you never know if you end up in the ditch or you stay on the road.
Yeah. That big bend you're talking about, that's the original course of the river, right?
Correct, yes. That's the big bend.
And they were going to use the dam and send some of it down another way, if I remember right.
Yeah, I mean, it goes, instead of going down those rapids, it essentially bypasses the rapids and goes down to the turbines.
Oh, so you get a big
at
drop.
Bellomonte. So 90% of the water is no longer flowing through the river.
Right. Now, I remember them saying that the zebra pleco habitat would be wiped out. Yeah, you mentioned it on one of the lists.
Well, it's red. It's still red listed. There's not that much water on top of it anymore as it used to, but it still gets smuggled out mostly through Colombia and Peru. Also, they really try to clamp down on it. And I know that there's several Brazilians that try to breed it, but so far they have bred it in quantity, but they are not able to get permits to export the fish. Now I know that there's at least 2, if not more, Indonesian breeders, and one of them makes 500 a week. So wow. Most of it goes straight to China because China is now the largest market for tropical fish in the world. And China itself, the state is actually investing. They literally build large hatcheries, aquaculture grade. And then fish breeders can rent that space and breed fish there. I mean, it would be the same thing as if U.S. Fish and Wildlife builds a hatchery and Eric Bodrock could move in and breed his fish. And I mean, in that regard, when people talk about how do we support small business and blue collar, etc., I'm like, why don't we take a page out of the Chinese playbook? They're not as, people always say they're, kind of like bending the rules and sort of anti-trade regulations at yada, yada, yada. But they're really, for the most part, trying all kinds of things to succeed. And one of the things they do is they invest in stuff that they can produce either for the domestic or for the export market. And when you look at companies like Hikari and others that sell, say, frozen food, even San Francisco Bay brand, 90% of all that frozen stuff now comes out of China. And it's, they have huge farms that cultivate bloodworms. And I'm always arguing, why the heck are we not doing this in Minnesota? I mean, it could be done, but we're not doing it. So, they're essentially taking the market not because they steal it, but because we let them. So I'm always saying we could do a lot more here domestically. And given the relatively high freight cost, which is most likely not going to change anytime soon, domestic producers here in the US could really, really get a foot in the door for good. But sometimes it, needs a little bit of federal or state help to get them started. If you get a credit of 50 grand, it's essentially forgivable loan to set up a hatchery, you would be in business, and that's what China does.
We got this question from Sean. In your opinion, what are the chances of the U.S. getting the Korea CW111? Do you know that fish?
Yes, yeah, the zebra corridoras, or it's essentially the same sort of thing as with the zebra pleco. It's just a question of time. It's easy to breed. So I know people in Europe who have bred it, in Asia it's bred. It's just a question of time until it pops up. And it will be the same sort of thing with everything. The first few specimens that will show up will cost a fortune. And those people who are saying, okay, I risk it, I'm going to invest $2,000 and buy a group of 6 or something, they will walk away with the cake at the beginning. It's always the same thing.
That name made me think of something I thought of during your talk. You said that the fish can't get on the white list. I mean, can't get listed at all if it doesn't have a name.
No, the thing is, it cannot be red listed.
Oh, okay. So we don't worry about that anymore anyway.
Well, yes and no. From, say, a trade point of view, not being able to list 174, you can argue is a good thing. Because,
well, that was where my question was going. They won't take an L number or a CW number as a name.
No, that's
okay.
The law requires the fish to have a taxonomic name. And there's actually, including Leandro and others of my friends, they were against it because they said that's stupid. There's a significant amount of fish that have no name, and they're critically endangered because they only occur in a very small area. And it's easy to wipe out by putting a bunch of seines in and doing a little bit of electrofishing. And so far, one can say the good thing is those areas are far away from the regular, traded routes, meaning collectors are unlikely to go there. Most collectors don't have electrofishing gear, so that removes that risk a little bit. But ultimately, from a point of view of conservation, it's up to us to say, okay, if a given fish like White's Manorum or others that are in limited supply, if you obtain some fish, and I have White's Manorum down in the fish room, if you obtain some, really put an effort into breeding them. And White's Manorum is literally a blue red of Rio Tetra, meaning breeding shouldn't be a huge challenge. And so I only have 5 specimens, but it's high on my list. I talked to Hans Evers, and he has already bred them. And I just got earlier this week a bunch of new fish too, including those red Cherry Tetras that I showed. And all these fish is what I look at as breedable because they fall into standard categories of Hyphisobricon style tetras. And you just have to fiddle a bit. Some are more finicky because they come out of those mountain streams up there. And so in some areas it's actually cold, meaning 65 degrees, so not bathtub. And chances are if you stick these fish, if you just have money and blow away money and stick these fish into your community tank because you want to have a prize specimen, that is a mistake. They will not survive because it's too warm. You just blow away money uselessly and you kill fish needlessly. So that's another thing why we want to publish that Tetra compendium, for the simple reason we want to give the fish a fair chance of survival, because ultimately we're fish freaks. We love what we're doing, and the foremost goal should be that we try to maintain those fish in captivity.
Don, you have anything?
Well, on a different subject, I do. So I don't know if you're ready for that.
I don't know. I'm drinking, so I'm good.
So the question I have is, you as a father and of a wonderful little girl, how do we get the next generation of kids and prospective fish keepers engaged in the hobby, in your view?
Well, those of you who picked up the last Amazonas issue with Weird Waters probably read my editorial. And it was a little over a year ago when Frank called me out of the blue and said, "Hey, I have something hot for you, but you need to first sign a non-disclosure agreement." And I was like, "Oh, fuck that." But so I did. And he told me quite little at that point. He essentially talked about a cartoon for kids about freshwater fish. And I thought, okay. And he's like, "Promise me that when I'm ready that you would cover it in Amazonas." And I said, okay. That's what you do for friends. You promise them stuff you would never promise a normal person outside of your friend circle. But I had faith into what he's doing, and so he came back a few months ago and said, "We're close." And so we got a whole bunch of stuff pre-release to the public so we could prepare. I kind of screwed around with my editors who didn't really like the idea that I'm going to completely change the issue they were working on. And I had to say that Courtney almost quit on us because I did that. But I was able to talk her into staying on, so I'm very grateful for that. But I think the Weird Waters issue turned out very good. And in the editorial, I said very clearly that I think we need to disassociate ourselves a bit from this whole teaching thing. And it was actually Frank who opened my eyes to that sort of thing. We have this sort of idea that when you give kids access to fish tanks, you should be immediately on top of them, change the water and check the pH and all that kind of stuff. All the sort of dry things that many of us maybe don't even care. And why should, a 5-year-old care about the pH in the tank? And one should more go along the lines of making this fun. Fish are fun. And that's what Frank was talking about. And I think it comes across in Weird Waters. Meaning, you want to plant the seed when they're anywhere from like 3 to 6, 7 years old, that fish are fun. Now you can argue, Nemo did already that. Well, Nemo starts, at least in my personal opinion, a little bit from the weird thing that an aquarium is a prison and cruel and all that thing, because the whole story is that he gets accidentally picked up, ends up in a fish tank, and desperately is homesick and wants to get flushed down the drain to join his brethren.
Right. All drains lead to the sea.
Right. Well, most of today's drains fortunately end up in a sewage plant. So that would be a fairly short trip. But I think the premise of the story of Nemo is actually quite tragic. While the premise of Weird Waters is just fun. And because it's an imaginary pond, I can imagine that some people who see I've seen the first episode and talked to Frank at great length back and forth. And when you see it at first, you think, well, it's not really so, it's not teaching people to keep fish. But that's not the point. It's not about teaching anything. It's about instilling fish are fun. Because once you plant the seed that fish are really cool, then you can build on that and get kids more involved. But if you start off the premise, fish keeping is about conservation and the world is about to end and all that kind of stuff, people are somewhat sick, especially after 12 months of COVID and 4 years of Trump. Sorry, I know there's might be people out there who liked him, but I'm sick of the end of the world type message all the time, because that's really, really hard to digest. You cannot just live in, tomorrow we're gonna die. We all know we're eventually gonna die. So my attitude is, let's have as much fun as we possibly can before we get there. And so with my daughter, who is 6.5 years old, I want her to come into the fish room and like, Daddy, what are they doing? Are they breeding? Are there babies? Can I feed the fish? And, I need to keep her from like overfeeding the tank and getting too excited. And that's where the whole thing should go. So having sort of experienced her and the fish in the last few years and talking to other people who have kids, is most of it, we simply have to capture them that they like fish. All the other things, helping protect the planet, use less plastic, all that kind of thing is a consequence of that love for fish to begin with. But if we come with sort of the, stick in the hand and, you shouldn't do this, you shouldn't do that, that sort of gets old very quick.
So how do you make it more fun?
Well, first of all, since kids are into like fabulous stories, that's where the cartoon comes in. This is, cool. The other thing is, take weird things and grab it by the collar. So it was last year, I walked out the driveway and, there's no water nearby. The next little creek is like 500 yards away. I walk into the driveway and there's a little turtle walking in my driveway. And it's one of those baby turtles. It was probably barely 1.5 inches long, a new hatchling of a red slider. And I bet the way it got there was it was dropped by a crow who picked it up and then accidentally dropped it. And of course, my daughter saw it and like, oh, what's this? And it's like, it's a little turtle. So we now have a turtle in the fish room too. And the thing is, that's where you capture them. Is they observe something and you run with it. Same as in the fish room. She comes in and says, it was 2 nights ago, she's like, oh, can you set up a fish tank for me? And I was like, well, there's 90 tanks in here. So pick one. And she's like, well, but they're already all my fish, so can I get a fish tank for myself? And I'm like, well, I just run with it. So, I tell her to feed the baby fish here, the baby fish there. I show her, a tank with Plecos where they're breeding and babies are in there. I show her breeding rings full of little larvae, and you just have to live with the fact that a 6-year-old has like a 5-minute attention span and then walks away, and don't get upset about that. Just run with it, because if you don't press them on it, they will come back. But if you get too serious about it, if you take the fun out of it, then that's when you lose them.
I have a 55-gallon in my son's 7-year-old room, and he's 7 years old. He has a 55-gallon tank in there, and he just wants colorful fish in there.
Mm-hmm.
Something he doesn't really care what's in there as long as it's colorful. And so I've got rainbows in there with some Exul, jewel cichlid fry growing up. And yeah, they're just colorful, bright, got some plants in there. He just loves having it in his room.
Absolutely.
So eventually he'll want to put his own stuff in there. But, just keep it colorful, keep it fun, and he just likes having it in his room.
Yeah, I mean, last year I got a bunch of buffalo heads from White Spot, and so Steve shipped me a load of wild ones, and I don't know, I have like 300 babies in several batches swimming around, and Isla just has a ton of fun with the babies because they hop around, they can barely swim, so that's cool, and some of you who subscribe to Amazonas may have seen the man-made fishes issue. And it was for years sort of a thought of mine to talk about man-made fishes. Hans Evers, the German editor, and I mean, Hans and I have been friends for 30 years now. I mean, it's just crazy how long we go back. And he was adamantly against it. He was just like, fuck glowfish. I was like, and I said, no, we should seriously write about it. We should talk about it because if I can get a bunch of kids who like glowfish at age 6 or 8 in that range to set up a fish tank, to put a bunch of glowfish in it, and to have like pink castles and bubbling treasure chests and all kinds of other garbage, as I would call it, in the tank. But if they bite the bait and if they like it, they will automatically eventually ask, are there some real fish? and get to it. So if we can capture them, perfect. That was sort of the other thing with Frank when he is like cartoons, animation, and I was like, Comic-Con. That's where we need to go. I mean, talk about a collection of weirdos and dorks. I mean, Comic-Con is like OCA except weirder.
Well, you got people who like to get into obsessions, and fish are easy to get obsessed about, and so it's another hobby to get obsessed about and collect and get into. And like during the summer, we go to a lake, and my son's, it's in Michigan, and we take the fish nets and we catch little fish, and we caught some, like, I don't know, some gobies, what they were, but then we caught little small, basically 1-inch smallmouth bass. Ended up taking one home and keeping it for a year till it got to this size.
Right.
And it just was
broke
fun.
All kinds of laws, but who cares?
Yeah, and I ended up, yeah. But it was cool. I mean, like, the boys loved catching them in the net, and it helped them get their love for wanting to catch fish and get into the hobby and see what can happen and fun. And, it's not like the fish I want to keep, but, they're just having fun.
Well, that's the kind of thing. When I grew up back in Switzerland, one of my first sort of exposures was we had a pond outside of the village. And one day we went out there in the spring and we pulled in huge amount of Elodea canadensis, which is widespread in Europe too. And it was full of newt larvae, that alpine newts. So when my mom came home, I had like 300 newt larvae in the bathtub.
You are a nerd fish.
Right. And she was like, we need to find a different habitat for those. So that's where the whole thing got started. And when I was a kid, I was all like, oh, aquarium fish are crazy. They're all like unnatural and colorful and tropical and yada, yada, yada. And I kept all kinds of weird stuff that was native. And eventually, from there, I started to get interested at age 14. And my parents were like, yeah, we don't want something that leaks. So they actually bought me a 75-gallon tank, brand new, when I was age 14. And, I did the usual thing. I tried to put walking catfish together with black skirt tetras. That didn't end well for the black skirt tetras, obviously. But all these kinds of things led to where I am today. I mean, publishing an aquarium magazine and owning a filter supply company and have a PhD in molecular genetics and all kinds of other things happened in the last 50 plus years that I don't want to remember. But the thing is this: you got to give them the way in. Now, in today's world, it's actually somewhat crazy because you go out with kids fishing somewhere, as you mentioned, and you catch little bass. I was at an ANFA convention a few years back down in Georgia, and we had actually a bunch of DNR people from the Georgia Department of Natural Resources with us. And at first they were like, holy shit, weirdos, and they kind of were all crazy about us not touching anything. At the end of the day, I was like having little trout on my hands and taking pictures, and they were all gung-ho high five with us because they figured out we're not there to destroy fish. We're not there to harm anything. We treat the stuff with patience and with appreciation. And we're not viewing them as the enemy just because they're there and try to make sure nobody does anything stupid. They were even looking the other way when some of us collect a few darters that are considered, a little bit endangered. And but because they walked away with 2 pairs, despite the fact we collected like 100. And so at that point they were like, yeah, 2 pairs is not going to be an issue. But the whole thing we have to teach today's kids how precious this whole thing is, but we need to let them experience it. If we go there right from the get-go, you can't touch this. You might harm it, you might kill it. It's like that's buying them a new toy and say you can't touch it because you might break it. It's like, why did you buy the toy to begin with? And you have to live with the fact that if kids keep pets, something happens. I mean, we have picked up 2 cats at the shelter in February, and when Isla walks around with them with a bear hug, I'm always like, whoa, I'm happy I'm not the cat. But the thing is this: how should I teach her, how to treat the cat properly if she doesn't have the cat to actually deal with? I can't teach her that with a stuffed animal. So yes, my 2 cats probably suffer a tiny little bit per day by being bear hugged by a 6.5-year-old, but they don't seem to care too much, and both of them haven't scratched her yet, so lucky for her. But in order to get kids involved, in Swiss German, we have this little saying translated as, you can't wash the baby without getting it wet. And this is true for, fish keeping. If we want the kids involved, we first of all have to, show them that fish keeping is fun. And then we have to let them make mistakes and live with the consequences or try to mitigate the consequences. And anything else is just, you can't do this in a sandbox. You have to do it in a fish tank.
Well, great insight. Thanks for sharing. Really appreciate it.
Well, are we on to the drawings?
Yes, I think we should do that.
Okay, so what do we have here up first?
All right, the first one will be, this was a donation from Swiss Tropicals. It's a 4-inch cube filter, plus a donation from John Patakis, a 8-ounce Plecos cane flake package. So that would be the first one.
All right, here we go. I'll add it to the stream.
Sounds like fun.
And we will go full screen. Well, we don't need to go full screen. We can go with this. So here we go. Wheel of names. And click to spin.
Don Gray again?
Wow.
Some
He's
people
a
just have the
lucky
touch.
bastard.
So what do we have? What's our next prize?
All right, this is the membership drawing. If you're already a OCA member, you'll win a 1 kilo bag of North Fin Cichlid formula 1 millimeter pellets. And if you're, yep, there it is. And if you're not an OCA member, you will be made an OCA member.
And no bag.
And no food this time, but you'll be eligible next time.
That goes to the Loose Fish Fund. Anyways, no, it doesn't.
No, it'll be given away next time.
All right, here we go. Let's see who the lucky winner is. Oh, if it lets me. There we go. Randall Wynn.
Yeah, I don't know if Randall Wyan is a member or not. We'll find out, and we'll do what needs to be done. That name is familiar from the auction, though. So there's a good chance that
I know Randall.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay. Very good. Yeah, I remember meeting him at the auction. Yeah, inside the hotel there. So okay, I guess that's it for tonight.
That's it.
Oh, just in time.
What?
You ran out. You
Yes,
ran out of
I'll have to get another
liquid.
I mean, you mentioned
Do you know
Trump,
what LTS stands
COVID,
for?
and something else. No wonder.
Yeah. Few things.
Life is too short.
Yeah, I haven't
All
seen
right.
that around here.
Well, it's a local brewery here in Rochester.
Okay.
All good. Well, thanks so much, Stephan. That was a great talk. Really appreciate just your
Thank you
heart
for having
and
me.
desire to see the fish industry grow and people get into the hobby and kids. And so best of luck with your daughter and getting her in the hobby.
Same to you.
Stephan, is your daughter going to enter our coloring contest?
I haven't asked her, but she
I
loves
think-
coloring, so no
I
doubt
think-
she will contribute.
Excellent.
Perfect. Well, with that being said, hey, we look forward to seeing everybody next month for June. And we know what June is, Lou?
We do not. We had someone booked, but I've got a couple of invitations out there.
So we have a mystery speaker. So that'll be our mystery crate month. And you'll just find out when you tune in what's going to happen. So we look forward to seeing everybody next month at our OCA meeting. Take care and have a good night.